minus 370 favorite Topuria is to beat Charles Oliveira.
What?
Minus 370.
That is insane.
Ilia Topuria is the favorite to beat Charles Oliveira. Minus 370 odds. Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira are scheduled to fight at UFC 317 on June 28th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The betting odds are already out, and they're surprising a lot of people. UFC legend Chael Sonnen was shocked to hear that Ilia Topuria, who will be fighting for the first time in the lightweight division, is actually the favorite to win against former champion Charles Oliveira. Sonnen said it doesn't feel right. Oliveira is a former world champion, has defended his title 3 times, and holds the record for the most submission wins in UFC history. Sonnen believes that Oliveira deserves more respect for everything he has achieved in the sport.
Minus 370 favorite Topuria is to beat Charles Oliveira.
What?
Minus 370.
That is insane. That is not right.
To be the world champion that defended 3 times, has more submissions than anyone in UFC history, and he's a minus 370 favorite.
Daniel Cormier says Ilia Topuria's biggest strength is his confidence. Daniel Cormier said that Ilia Topuria's greatest strength right now is his confidence. He shared a conversation he had with Josh Thompson, who mentioned that Topuria doesn't know what it feels like to lose, and that mindset gives him a big advantage. Cormier explained that Topuria truly believes he will win fearless and dominant every time he steps into the cage.
Confidence is key. I think the biggest thing that Topuria has right now is confidence. And I told Justin and I were talking about that. He goes, dude, he doesn't know how to lose, so he's so confident that he can beat anyone that he goes out there and he fights in the way that he did.
Charles Oliveira, ready to prove the doubters wrong. Charles Oliveira is fully prepared for this fight and is determined to prove the betting odds wrong. He's excited for the challenge and is aiming to knock out Ilia Topuria in their title fight. Oliveira made it clear that he respects Topuria, but also has strong belief in his own abilities. He said, "I have nothing but respect for Ilia Topuria, but this is the lightweight division. I believe in my jiu-jitsu, but I also believe I can knock him out." However, Ilia Topuria raised doubts about Oliveira's mindset. He pointed out that Charles has 10 losses, which can affect a fighter's confidence. Topuria said, "It's a totally different experience fighting someone with that many losses versus someone who's undefeated." Topuria did admit that Oliveira is dangerous in both striking and grappling, but added that fighters who have never lost are mentally stronger and harder to break. According to Topuria, when things get tough, Oliveira tends to give up, often dropping to the ground and waiting for the fight to end.
This is what I was telling you before, like, when you got 10 losses in your record, that's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's 10.
Yeah.
Like, when you walk in with a guy that has 10 losses, the level of confidence is completely different. It's completely different than when you walk in with a guy that it's undefeated.
Right.
He's a dangerous guy in the striking, in the ground game, everywhere you look at him, he's a dangerous guy. He never takes a lose. That's a different mentality. You gotta have to kill him to give up. He's not gonna even give up. You gotta have to kill him. In the case of Charles, if he finds some adversity, he's gonna go to the ground. He's gonna sit and he's gonna be waiting like till you end up the fight.
Charles Oliveira's reaction to fighting. Ilia Topuria for the belt. Charles Oliveira shared how he felt when he found out he would fight Ilia Topuria for the title. He talked about the excitement around him and said he immediately contacted his coach, Diego, to state the belt should never have left his division, and now they are ready to bring it back. He is focused on what he and his team can control, staying sharp and planning their strategy carefully. Oliveira knows Topuria is a tough opponent, but he is confident in his own power and commitment. He promised to give his best and is determined to reclaim the belt.
Everyone started yelling, the kids screaming and all that. Training had just ended and so on. I grabbed the phone, saw thousands of messages, went straight to Diego. That's it. Let's go. We're ready. 46 days. 46 days for this belt to return where it never should have left. We'll focus on what matters, stay sharp, and make it happen. I'm not fixated on their moves, but on what we can bring and take. My team will map out Tupula so we can plan our game. My focus is what I'll bring to the fight. We're more than ready and prepared for this fight, right? Tough opponent, but I know my power. I'll go all in, fulfill my promise, and get that belt.
Henry Cejudo thinks Ilia Topuria has the advantage, former UFC champion. Henry Cejudo believes this fight favors Ilia Topuria because of his style. He highlighted Topuria's explosive power, sharp boxing skills, and his ability to mix attacks to both the body and head. Cejudo praised Topuria for knocking out many opponents in a powerful way. He also talked about Topuria's toughness, mentioning his fight at lightweight against Jai Herbert. Even though Topuria was knocked down, he showed great resilience by coming back and winning with a knockout.
Man, look at this fight. I think of this fight stylistically. I think, okay, the explosive power and the power in the hands, and it's crazy to say that. You have to go with more of Ilia Topuria, right? Ilia Topuria goes high, low. He can go to the body. He can go up top. He's been knocking people out cold. That means Max Holloway, 2 future Hall of Famers. He knocked out. None of those guys went championship rounds. We saw him one time at 155 pounds where he did get hurt against Burns, against Jai Herbert, but he got hurt. He got dropped, but the matador in him, he came back, he ended up.
Henry Cejudo on Charles Oliveira's strengths and risks. Henry Cejudo said that Charles Oliveira is bigger and more experienced at lightweight. Oliveira has fought top fighters like Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje. Cejudo praised Oliveira's wrestling skills, especially his strong double-leg takedowns. However, Cejudo is worried about Oliveira's style of fighting close to his opponent. He said this could be dangerous against a fighter like Ilia Topuria, who is good at striking up close. Cejudo thinks Oliveira's habit of fighting very close might cause problems for him in this fight.
Oliveira is the bigger fighter. Charles Oliveira has fought the who's at 155 pounds. I mean, everything absolutely changes, man, with Charles Oliveira taking down Michael Chandler, with Charles Oliveira taking down Justin Gaethje with those beautiful double legs. But I will say this, when I think of this fight, I always think of the distance that Charles Oliveira brings, and particularly he likes to be in close. And the fact that he likes to be in close with an inside fighter, it doesn't make sense.
Henry Cejudo says Oliveira must make adjustments. Henry Cejudo said that it's actually Charles Oliveira, not Ilia Topuria, who will need to change his game the most in this fight. Even though Topuria is smaller and moving up in weight, Oliveira has been knocked down by top fighters like Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, and Islam Makhachev. With Topuria's strong knockout power, Cejudo warned that if Oliveira doesn't adjust,
one thing, the person that needs to make adjustments in this fight, typically you would say the lighter fighter, the smaller fighter going up, but not really. Charles Oliveira has been dropped by just about everybody that he's fought, from Chandler to Gaethje to Islam. I mean, what happens when you go up against a dude that's knocking people out, not TKOing people, knocking people out cold like Ilia Topuria? So when I'm looking at this fight, I'm saying Charles Oliveira is the guy that has to make those adjustments. If not, it's going to be the double champ. It's going to be Ilia Topuria securing himself as a 2-division world.
Michael Bisping on the fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. Michael Bisping talked about the upcoming fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. He called forward with strikes and submissions. But Bisping also said that Topuria has strong punching power, sharp boxing skills, relentless pressure, and good Greco-Roman wrestling. Because of this, he wouldn't be surprised if Topuria wins the fight, even though it's his first time fighting at lightweight.
Ilia versus Charles "Du Bronx" Oliveira. We know Charles, he's a dangerous, aggressive Topuria. The boxing that he has, the footwork that he has, and the Greco-Roman wrestling, it wouldn't surprise me if Ilia pulls it.
MMA Guru and Demetrius Johnson share their thoughts. MMA Guru said the fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira is a big pay-per-view event that doesn't even need a title to be exciting. He is curious to see how Topuria will perform at lightweight. Demetrius Johnson added that Topuria usually weighs around 191 pounds, so it's surprising he fought at featherweight before. Johnson said moving up to lightweight makes sense and that he likes watching fighters challenge themselves in higher weight classes.
Topuria fights Charles Oliveira on a pay-per-view. That's a big deal.
Oh, it's gonna be bigger.
They don't need to wait for an interim belt. They don't need to wait for an undisputed. So, yeah. I don't know how he's going to do it lightweight, though. Maybe you can speak on that. He's a smaller guy coming up.
It's a smaller coming up. It'll be interesting because he is bigger from when I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like 191, I think he was walking around. It's massive. So for him to cut the teams, almost like, how did he do that? But now that he's going up to 155, I always like when athletes go.
Pimplet's thoughts on the fight. Pimplet believes Ilia Topuria has a good chance to beat Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. He said Oliveira has a bit of a chin, meaning he can take a lot of hits because he has fought almost 40 fights and taken a lot of damage. Pimplet also praised Oliveira's great ground skills, but said Oliveira can be reckless sometimes. He pointed out that moving up from 145 to 155 pounds is a big challenge and not talked about enough. Since Oliveira and Topuria are about the same height, Oliveira might not have a big size advantage, which could be important in the striking part of the fight.
Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's had about 40 fights or something. He always gets punched. He always gets cracked.
Yeah.
So,
he's reckless, but he's super exciting.
Yeah, he is.
And he's dangerous.
If he gets him down, I can see him winning because that 10 pounds difference is a big difference.
Yeah.
145 to 155, it's a big difference. People don't understand that because they don't watch the sport or they're not involved in the sport. But that 10 pounds makes a big difference. And especially like Charles is like my height. Ilia's like down here when I stand up, you know what I mean? So it's gonna make a big difference.
Pimplet warns about Oliveira's size. Pimplet said Ilia Topuria might be surprised by how big and strong Charles Oliveira is. He explained that fighters moving up in weight often don't realize how big their opponents really are until they meet face to face. Pimplet shared his own experience, saying that Bobby Green and Michael Chandler looked smaller on TV but were actually much stronger and solid in person.
Ilia might get a bit of a fright at how big Charles is when he stands opposite him. Fighters do that with me, who fight at lightweight. You know what I mean? I'll never forget Bobby Green looking over at me and being like, what, he's big in. Same with Chandler. Like people thought Chandler was going to be bigger than me, and he just weren't.
Islam Makhachev's coach predicts Ilia Topuria will win. Islam Makhachev's coach, Javier Mendez, said he thinks Ilia Topuria will beat Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. He told Tim Welch that if he had $100,000 to bet, he would put it on Ilia to win, but not necessarily by knockout. Even though Mendez hopes Oliveira wins, he agrees that the betting odds favor Topuria.
Who would you bet?
Ilia.
By knockout?
I don't know, but I would if someone gave me $100,000 but if you're asking me who I would want to win, I'll put Charles. I'll put my money on Charles.
Yeah, that's who you'd want.
Yeah, so that's who I'd want.
Yeah.
But if you'd give me 100 to make 100, you know, if it's that type of even, like you get 100, you can make 100, I would put Ilia.
Javier Mendez explains why he's picking Ilia Topuria. Javier Mendez explained why he believes Ilia Topuria will beat Charles Oliveira in their upcoming fight. He pointed out that Topuria has powerful inside boxing and is very good at landing clean punches, which could give him a big advantage. Mendez noted that Oliveira often stands too upright, making it easier for Topuria. Mendez believes Topuria has more ways to win the fight.
Why else do you think you would pick Ilia over Charles? What is it about his skill set that you like more?
It's basically because Charles is going to stand in there upright, like you're saying, and when he gets inside, he's going to use that boxing, and Charles' head's going to be up, and Ilia's got a really good way of connecting with that chin on the inside. Really, really nice, just like what he did with Volk. You know, and I think if Charles doesn't get him up the middle with knees or front kicks up the middle, he's going to have a hard time with his boxing against him, and he's going to have a hell of a time trying to take him down. So it's going to be one of those where Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does. But Charles can surprise us with his length, you know, and up the middle would be really, really well suited for him. And the kicks too, you know, body, head type thing, you know, low, high, you know, he could do really well.
Javier Mendez talks about a possible Topuria versus Makhachev fight. Javier Mendez also shared his thoughts on what might happen if Ilia Topuria fought Islam Makhachev. He said that because Topuria is moving up from featherweight, the matchup might not favor Islam at first. But if the UFC makes the fight, they will prepare to make it competitive. Mendez compared Topuria's toughness to Alexander Volkanovski, and praised his technical boxing, saying it might be the best in the division. He added that this makes Topuria a very difficult opponent to prepare for.
Goes down. How do you see that one playing out?
That one is, again, that's a super, super tough fight, you know, just because Ilia, you know, he's coming as a featherweight and fighting Islam, you know, for me, you know, it doesn't really benefit Islam to fight him, but if that's what the UFC is going to do, that's what they're going to do. But he's so tough, so tough. I mean, he's doing all the right things, what he's saying, how he's saying it, you know, that I see him as a tough challenge. He's to me like a Volkanovski type, you know, super tough. So you have to prepare for him. And the thing that's different about him is he has really good boxing. He has really good boxing. I've said it that I think he has the best boxing in the whole division, you know, and I know technical. I'm not saying striking, but boxing on a technical boxing level, he's pretty damn good.
Aljamain Sterling and Luke Thomas on Topuria versus Oliveira and future matchups. Aljamain Sterling warned Charles Oliveira about Ilia Topuria's striking power, saying that if Topuria lands clean shots, it could lead to a very tough night for Oliveira. He reminded fans that Oliveira has been dropped in several past fights and questioned how Topuria's knockout power at featherweight will carry over to lightweight. Sterling said, Charles, Oliveira gets dropped in almost every fight. We already know Ilia Topuria can hit hard at 145.
The number one fight that could have been made among all permutations was Islam Ilia. That's the best fight that could have been made. But the point I've been trying to make is that while that would be the most desirable one to choose, it's not like you're getting something bad even though you're not getting it. In other words, Topuria against Oliveira for the lightweight belt is fire. I don't care what anybody else says, it's fire. And then I've been saying this whole time, Islam going up to 170 and seeing how he matches up there with De La Maddalena, potentially Brady, potentially Rock.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. That's everything for today's video. Thanks for tuning in. The hype for UFC 317 is building fast, with Ilia Topuria entering as the favorite against former champ Charles Oliveira, something even Chael Sonnen finds surprising.